So when you're ready, begin softening through your body. Crown of the head releases. Neck softens. The musculature around the eyes, behind the eyes, the jaw. Releasing your tongue, your throat, back of your neck. With every exhalation, letting go even more of your tension. Let it fall away, release outward from the center. Maybe you find that includes mental tension, emotional tension. It all softens away. Release your shoulders all the way down to your elbows, your wrists, your hands. With each exhalation, you might find a wave of softness that comes as you soften the shoulders further and it releases down to the elbow, which softens your lower arm. A wave of movement that travels to your fingertips, completely through release. Wow, lots of chatting. Anna's here. Hooray! Releasing your chest, at the same time allowing the shoulder blades to sink down your back, opening and widening your back without closing your chest, without rolling your shoulders forward. This softens further down the arms to the hands as you release all of this outward, just as we practiced during the set. Your belly releases as you breathe. Your lower back is soft, comfortable. Your hips are relaxed, allowing the weight to drop forward. We worked on our hips yesterday. The weight sets just in front of the sitting bones. softening your hips as much as possible. Your knees are released, your ankles and your feet. Today, I'd like to focus on the legs, down to the feet and the toes. Because we're doing this as a seated practice, it might be easier to simply mix everything from here down. Just another few breaths, letting go all the way from the hips, through the knees, to the lower legs, to the feet and the toes. A wave of softness. Later in other practices, like Tai Chi or many forms of Qigong, the movements themselves are generated through these waves of softness, this movement of release that happens through the body as you let go. So we simply practice it while sitting still, letting go. And continuing to let go. I'll just do this once in a while to remind everybody to soften and not grip their legs or their feet. As you move your body around, notice whether or not you have the habit of gripping with your legs because you have a fear of falling over. And just continue to settle and soften. Use that to ground you rather than tension to try to stabilize you. Always letting go between movements to release any tension that may or may not be building. Taking your time. Always making sure that your hands are nice and warm before you touch your body. That sense of warmth soaking in around the eyes, softening into that tissue just beneath the skin. As a reminder, for those of you who are joining us that don't know what we're doing, please do check that comment section below the video for a link to an introductory instruction class that I taught, which will explain everything that we're doing and why it might feel a lot less confusing than simply joining us here in the middle. Just as a reminder, as your elbows and your hands move up, allow your shoulders to soften down, your shoulder blades to sink down the back. Feeling into that space below the surface of the skin, above the bone, where fluid is circulating and life is happening. Qi is flowing. You don't really get to do it in that chair. allowing your awareness to sink in with a kind of deep, friendly quality. As I work on this point here in the front of the ear, I also like to have one finger settled back into that space just behind the earlobe, circling both, softening both. Continuing to soften your shoulders. Always taking the time to settle. Don't skip this part. Especially on those days that seem the most difficult to settle for any reason. Those are actually the days that you need to settle the most. So if it's feeling especially impossible someday to get your chi to sink and become quiet, that's the day you spend at least twice as long doing it, is my recommendation. Or maybe spend the same amount of time trying to settle, and if you feel agitated, go for a really slow, comfortable walk, just letting your feet move, and then come back and try again. Remember to keep your legs, your ankles, your feet soft. Through the body, there is a very strong relationship between the legs and the arms. I've had many experiences where trying to treat localized pain in the knee or somewhere else on the leg, like the foot, wasn't working. And so I treated the same spot, but on the opposite side of the body and on the arm instead of the leg. And that is shockingly effective for some people. One story that I sometimes tell, a gentleman that I lived with for years, and he had gotten better in a number of ways that counted, deep issues that he'd been dealing with. But one very difficult thing that we weren't making much progress in was this swelling pain in the back of his knee. And he was an older man. And we would treat it, and the pain would go away for a day or two, and then it would come back. And this went on for years. And usually I look for actual positive permanent change, not just Band-Aid treatments. And so we would try different things. And one day I poked around on his opposite elbow in the area that was in the spot on his knee. And there's kind of a localized painful spot. So I put a needle there doing acupuncture. And he didn't feel anything. And then suddenly he felt a lot. And as we say, I sort of had to peel him off the ceiling and calmed him down, apologized, took the needle out. But that pain never came back in his knee. That swelling never showed up again. And so sometimes you just keep looking around until you find the thing that helps. And if you are dealing with issues on your knees or your legs or your feet, which is the focus for today, you can take the time to see if you can find that analogous position on your arms, either the same side or the opposite side, and see how that can be helpful to ease that, and you'll get relief. Yeah, I agree, Anna. It's wonderful that often the way that we imagine the body works doesn't quite. I'm so grateful for the people that took the time to figure all this stuff out for us. We just get to show up and read about it. And suddenly, wow, it works. But how many centuries or millennia did it take for lifetime practitioners to work out these rules? So amazing. And that's why, again, I support people in finding traditional arts to study, practices and methods and lineages and things that have been handed down in all kinds of traditions for a long, long time, at least centuries, and longer if possible. And there's a reason why a lot of these systems have stuck around and have been nurtured and refined, and they're just wonderful. Very often we tend to be attracted to whatever the latest thing is. And sometimes those can be wonderful, but very often they fix a problem in one area and cause a problem in another because they're not part of a whole system. And so if you can, look for ancient traditions. And I feel like very often, at least, you'll be surprised at how well it works. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Mel really likes these ancient methods. The old books are her favorite.
Certain old books.
Certain old books.
I don't know that I would say all old books.
Is the I Ching considered the oldest book?
I remember reading that, but
I think it depends on when we decided it showed up.
Yeah.
I've heard that about a few different texts. Maybe today we can do another recording. And then not put it out for these people that were teasing. I still have to edit the last one. All this contained wisdom of Mel locked away in my computer. Letting go of your hips, your legs, your knees, your ankles, and your feet. Just be light in your body. You become light because you release all of the weight out of it. Which is to say, we become light not because we hold ourselves up, but because we let everything fall downward. Everything sinks and settles through us. And the result of that is this yang, this lightness, this ling, this nimble liveliness. But don't lift your chi up. Let it sink down. Let it accumulate. taking the time to ease open your joints. Remember that we're not pushing, we're not digging. We're softening this relatively superficial layer. Don't sink past it, not with your intention. And don't avoid it by being distracted out of your body. Stay present and let your awareness soak into this layer of the body. If your mind wanders away, soften the distraction, let your mind naturally come back. Avoid gripping your mind further. Instead, see if you can cultivate an interest, a fascination with what's happening inside your body. That way your mind will pay attention to it effortlessly. You don't have to push yourself, just find ways in which what's happening is really interesting, which is just a cue to your mind that this is something you'd like to pay attention to. And that way you don't have to fight it all the time. Usually that's only an issue in the beginning because eventually the sensations and the movements and things that are happening through the body are so unusual and feel so nice that it becomes easy to focus on. It's only in the beginning when everything feels dull and numb that we have to pay a little bit of closer attention to what's going on, be a little extra gentle with the mind, and to look for reasons that you might be interested in what's happening inside. Continuing to soften your hands. Gently nourishing all the way to the fingertips. Softening through it. If you have a finger or two that have especial trouble, spend some extra time there. Be careful with movements like this. You'll notice for me, my waist is moving, so my legs are moving. But I want to stay perched on my chair so that my legs stay soft. And by the way, the wonderful and lovely Chris has been helping us find perfect practice stools to work on. And so far, this is the best stool I've ever sat on.
It's really, really nice.
It's really nice. It's definitely, for tall people, this is as low as it goes, and it's just barely short enough for me. But if you tend toward average height, because I'm just perfectly average height and up, then I highly recommend this stool. And Chris, if you feel like sharing which one this is, maybe other people can grab them. It meets all of the criteria. It has a firm edge. It's very stable, so it doesn't squish and fall. It supports you as you sit, but it's not a hard edge. It's really wonderful.
How tall are you for reference?
I am probably 5'10", 5'11", and feet. So you have to do the calculation for that. Is that a drum stool? I don't know what a drum stool is, but we'll figure it out and we'll post it either today or tomorrow in case people are looking for a stool. And again, it wouldn't be so great for a shorter person, but the little white stool that I sit on sometimes before, that is also a pretty good stool. It's a little less stable feeling, but maybe for a smaller person, it would feel more stable. And it's also, it gets much lower, and it's a very comfortable practice stool, meditation stool. In closing. And if we don't find out during class, then you can also check back later in the video that I'll post on Patreon. And I'll put down in the comment section a link to this stool once I figure out what it is. Quite nice, quite nice. Although I would caution against, if you have hard floors and you're trying to sit in a stable way like we are here, I wouldn't get one that has wheels on the bottom, because it might make you feel a little more unstable until you're always holding on with your legs a little bit. So I'd get a version that just has stable feet. But on this carpet, it doesn't matter because it doesn't move. Of course, if you're at work or something, you have to roll around, then this is still a good stool. But for practices like this, where we're just trying to let go and let things settle, then an unmoving stool on the surface like this, I think, is good. Always letting go.
Oh, thank you, Chris. He just put the name of the stool in the
Oh, awesome. Chris, you are a god among men, a scholar and a gentleman.
And then the wolves came.
And then destiny arrived. Do you want to talk about your hand softening experience from all of this we've been working on?
Oh, sure. John and I were napping yesterday afternoon, and it was one of the best naps we've had in a long, long time. We were able to go really deep into sleep. And when I woke up, I noticed my hands were unusually soft. Like there was significantly less tension in them than there usually is. And I noticed that corresponding quality in the mind as well. So typically when I wake up from sleep, my mind starts to get like rev up and become really active. It starts wanting to chew on ideas and things to do. And I noticed all I had to do was become aware of that soft, supple quality in my hands. And instantly my mind mirrored that state.
Right.
And it was really, really wonderful because ZhiCheng Shifu encourages this specific softening practice of the hands, because that's where I don't know, how would you articulate it? That's where the mind, that's the hands. There are certain areas of the body that tend to inform the mind more than others. And I guess the hands are one of them. So
that's
the
right.
hands, and I think you said your elbows as well.
Your hands, your face, your tongue.
Right.
Not your elbows.
Okay.
I mean, maybe your elbows, but not mine.
Yeah, maybe he was just speaking to me. I have really stiff elbows. But yeah, anyway, I just thought that was really cool. And yeah, it's something that I don't practice regularly enough, but it was a nice reminder that, oh yeah, if you soften your hands, it really does have this huge impact on your mind as well.
Right, that's right. The elbow example that he gives is particularly, you emphasize focusing on softening the elbows as a way to help release the shoulder in the way that I was talking about earlier. But the hand softening practice, where we were talking about how there's certain areas of the body that the brain in particular, puts a lot of neurological activity into. It's those places that we feel and experience the world through. Our hands and fingers, our lips, our tongue, our eyes. They take huge sections of the brain. And so it's pretty fascinating. Yeah. Okay, we just keep going. Thank you for sharing that. Yeah. Yeah, Shifu recommends that as we start to go to sleep at night, that you simply practice softening your hands as deeply as you can. And at some point, what will happen is a shift happens where you will wake up in the morning and you'll find that your hands are incredibly soft because you spent the entire night practicing. You are continuing to let go all night long, whereas most people, they fall asleep and they grip randomly, or their arm goes to sleep, or something happens. And they wake up and they have to fix whatever happened when they were asleep. But you can adjust to that process. And so instead, you are practicing letting go all night long, which of course helps you with your sleep. And like Mel was mentioning, the quality of what we do with our body is part of what we're doing with our mind. That's why we're constantly trying to soften and be friendly, because that shapes how our mind works. And so by practicing going to sleep and letting go, of course, that helps you sink into sleep more easily. But at some point, you'll wake up and you'll find that this practice is continuing throughout the night. And then slowly you can expand that softening practice to the rest of your body, one joint at a time, until sleeping by itself ends up being an incredibly nourishing practice in softening, not just resting. It's pretty cool.
Yeah, and I think one of the other benefits of softening and stilling the mind and all of these things, in addition to what you said, is being able to like recognize certain mental patterns, see them a little more clearly than we would otherwise. Like for me, I recognize, oh, my mind likes to think about like all of the things that could go wrong today and what I should do to preempt them.
That's right.
It doesn't need to do that.
Yeah, I think that's true. And we can't notice it unless we're soft enough to feel those adjustments. And because if we're already tense, we can't tell when new tension comes. But if we're soft and tension arises, it draws our awareness to it because it's a really big change.
Yeah.
I'm sure you're the only person that worries about things happening throughout the day. These wonderfully human problems,
Yeah.
that probably ancestors in caves had to deal with the exact same, like they would recognize the exact same pattern. And Chris says, thank you for sharing.
Oh, you're welcome. Yeah, okay, that's helpful.
It's really helpful. In general, Mel and her healing journey has been really inspirational. That's why I'm trying to get her to be on record more often so that people can learn from her. She's amazing.
You're a little biased.
I am a little biased. Softening all of that connective tissue, any tension that might be holding around the ribs. Are you able to copy and paste the chat things?
What would you like me to copy?
Just the name of the stool and to
Oh, sure.
text it to me or email it maybe so I can make sure that I put it in the comment section later.
Yeah, no problem.
Thank you. I've been intending to do a series of useful product reviews for practitioners. And so I think this stool odyssey will be one of them. And I can make a joke about reviewing various stool samples that only nerdy medical people will appreciate. Softer and softer. Your hands, gentle. You might find that as they get softer, there's a kind of moist accumulation. They're not really sweaty, but they're warm and soft and moist. You probably feel plump and full. And this is a very good sign. And you allow that quality to soak into the tissues, teaching the rest of your body and your mind how to be that way. And just as a reminder, if you happen to be a human that has a menstrual cycle and you find yourself on that cycle at any given time, there's a small percentage of you that when we close and gather qi to this area of the body, that it can make your period a little bit more heavy, the bleeding a bit more heavy, or other sensations more intense. Usually it helps to ease that process, but occasionally, because you're gathering energy there, it can press against other blockages and make things more uncomfortable. So if that's you, then instead, during that specific time of the month, do a closing to this place just in the solar plexus. You wouldn't want to do it there all the time, but it's a nice in-between space to gather and allow the qi to settle there. And that's perfectly acceptable as well. Spend some extra time here because we're working on the lower legs. These points help to release qi down the legs. Emphasizing this downward direction, helping send warmth and waves of softness down toward the feet, as well as side to side, helping to open the space that is so often collapsed and closed in the middle. Emphasize this releasing down the leg, down the channel toward the feet, spreading away in this area that tends to grip toward the center. We release all of this outward, spreading through the legs, keeping the hips soft. Be careful that you're not bracing yourself against the movement. And of course, feel free to spend extra time on any one of these points that feels extra nourishing for you. You can use your fingers, the base of your thumb, the full center of the palm. You can make circles, or you can allow the skin to move over the point. Any of these are okay, but find out which one helps you feel the most soft beneath the skin, helps you to quiet your mind and release your hands. Remember to keep your legs soft and easy. Allow your awareness to soak into that space beneath the knee. Feel it soften open to the touch of your mind. Stomach 36. And then the sides of the leg. By the way, we had a question about sore throats, points that are useful for treating sore throat. And of course, with every answer I give about medicine, the answer is always, it depends. But because sore throat can come from a lot of things. But usually just for treating the symptom of sore throat. My favorite point historically has been this point in the center of the thumb. I talked about it a couple of days ago, just between the muscle and the bone, lung 10. You can get in there and gently press on it if it helps. Sometimes I pull a drop of blood out of it, and that's sometimes helpful. But it's actually one of the neat side effects of using that point to work with. Because for a lot of these points, this is the area that I am stimulating the point with. And so my hands are softening, and that point, lung 10, is being nourished and opened while I work on the rest of the body. Remembering to keep your legs soft. What you want to look for is the quality of stability that comes from releasing your legs, relaxing them through your legs to the ground, so that your legs become stabilized as you soften, not because you're pushing against movement, but because you're releasing lengthwise. And of course, that's a lot to ask for people who are often just learning how to relax. But it is the direction you want to take your practice, becoming stable by releasing your body, by softening long. This is part of being grounded and connected, integrated. Eventually, it's the same as you use your fingers to press into your body, that you don't have to push your fingers hard, but instead you manage to soften along the length of the fingers through the joints. And that makes your fingers very strong and stable. So you're using the softness to stimulate these points. Yeah, those. And are you asking about the circles around the knees? It does, yeah. And specifically, of course, this set is emphasizing that layer of fascia around the knee, superficial, but of course it all ties into the ligament structure and the spaces inside the knee. And so as long as you are gently releasing around the knee, and you can even with your fingertips lightly stimulate each of the points that we are learning about around the knee as you circle. That's one of the secrets. As I practice this, you might see my fingers now just habitually connect with these points as I move around. And so it's a kind of a nourishing wave of movement around and through the knees. And then if you can lengthen and soften through the leg this way, because remember the movements we're looking for go through and past the joints, not into the joints. And anytime you have this wave of softness travel through the joints, it's very healing and nourishing for the sinews. It helps to open that space in there so there's not a lot of this kind of pressurization occurring. And of course, it helps with muscular tension because tension is part of what causes contraction and localized stiffness and all of this. And reduces inflammation because there's less wear and tear occurring that whole cycle. And so, yeah, it's a very useful practice. Yeah, the nourishing wave. As long as it's coming from letting go and not trying to push with your mind, but rather you're just opening, and you open in the direction of through. And that is a very healing process for the body. Eventually, that kind of nourishing wave is potent enough, you can stand on it. It's that softness, that opening by itself is enough to move you. And it's very wonderful healing. Transforms how we are in our body. And if you're my instructor, then you use it to throw me all over the place. And that throughness, that same quality of letting go through our body and out our body, the letting go process, that's the physical version. The mental expression of that, of course, is letting go of our thoughts. And so they're able to move through and complete themselves. So you have a thought, a useful something, and you're able to fully digest it, complete the thought, and then let it go. Instead of cycling and cycling and cycling as so many people do. That's the mental version of tension in our joints, our body, a movement that gets caught in our body and cycles and never lets go again. And we just accumulate those things. So this is all the same pattern in the body mind. In the body, physical body, it shows up in certain ways. In the mind, it shows up in certain ways. emotionally it shows up, of course. We want to express an emotion, and instead of it just moving through and out us in a way that is healthy and vulnerable and expressive, instead it gets trapped in cycles and cycles and cycles. And then pretty soon we're just responding to our own old patterns. I have a feeling that's been trapped in my body for years, and now I'm making emotions and feelings about those old feelings. I have thoughts that have been trapped in my mind for years, decades, and now I'm just making new thoughts about those old thoughts. And we do the same in our bodies. We have patterns that have been trapped here, and now we just make more patterns based on those old patterns. And the cure for that is not to try to fix them, but to let them go. They go through, they go out. They finish whatever they had first started. And that's such a different way of being in the body and healing the body-mind. Feels very nice. Oh. This amazing thing. Figure out a use for that. Yeah, I was doing combo movements on my legs. It's nice to mix things together. But of course, everyone should feel free to find the way that works for them to soften a massage. Sometimes it's nice just to work on one point really slowly, one side at a time, and let your awareness soak into that spot. Especially, if my right knee hurts, then maybe I want to spend lots of time really warming and nourishing. This could be a kind of movement that might feel really good. This quality. Not pushing hard, just helping release. And I've damaged my knees to no end. And these kinds of things over the years have been really helpful. And so it's just that we spent so much time on the knees already. I try not to do too many things. But all of these practices, you can take the time. You could do them both if that feels really good. This stuff is endlessly wonderful. Gentle and loving. Easy and free. Releasing from the hips. Again, make sure that you don't grip your thighs. Just falling and lengthening around the circle. If you find your neck pulling down or your chin tightening or your head lifting or your shoulders gripping, you might be going the wrong direction. This ankle always loves to make noise in this direction. Remember to keep your legs soft. Don't start turning into this a strong exercise. You want to be light and free like our tree friend here. Gentle and open. Easy. Lengthening your spine, softening your shoulders, softening your neck long, and then releasing. Releasing through upward, and your legs release through this way, down toward your feet. That's why we don't want to start gripping with our hips or our thighs. Feel free to only reach down as far as feels comfortable. You can draw and open all the way back if this is comfortable for your shoulders. And it's perfectly fine to do it differently. Make sure that you're not holding your breath at any point. That looks great.
Really?
Yeah, very soft.
I have to bend my knees to do it. But...
I think it's just fine. I appreciate how good you are at letting go. And only as far as feels comfortable. Mel is a good example. Softening your waist. You let go of one side, you let go of the other. That's how the movement happens. Releasing the waist, softening the lower back. Avoid holding your breath, tightening your throat. Melanie has a penchant for dancing in the backdrop. That's impossible to click my tongue if I'm laughing. Don't tighten your tongue. Lengthen and soften it. Always waiting for that sense of gathering. Get nice and comfortable. I'll only spend a couple of minutes laying here, but of course you can lay for as long as you'd like. Letting your body soften open, supporting your body in whatever way is important for you with pillows or blankets. Be gentle. Letting your whole system fall open. Your awareness spreads out through your body. Always being very gentle with your system. If you'd like to stay laying or just drift off into sleep now, you're certainly welcome to. Otherwise, you can spend a moment sitting, allowing your awareness again to accumulate in this middle dantian space behind the navel, and then slowly to spread out through your whole body and beyond that into the space around you. Maintain this sense of settled quality, settled stability in the center of your body. Thank you very much.